Hey guys, David here. When you think of cars, car culture, the things that inspired you to one day get your driver's license and own, I want you to take a second and think about the ones that come to your mind. Mark IV Supra, the Skyline, the NSX, the Terminator Cobra, the BMW E36 or E46, 240SX, the C5, C6 Corvettes, the RX-7s. All of these legends were a really long time ago now. But my question is, what did they have in common? As somebody who consumes a ton of YouTube, including channels outside of cars, I watch a ton of things about movies, games, history, all that kind of stuff. Well, a video that came across my feed by The Critical Drinker really caught my eye. He has this take that movies are just not as memorable as they used to be, and they don't have the same cultural impact as they did back when they came out. You don't quote them as much. You don't remember the whole movie basically by heart. You basically go to the movie theater for a fast food experience and you forget about it. I said, now wait a minute. Are cars the exact same way? New cars, not the old cars. New cars are pretty forgettable. So yes, this video is inspired by that video, just with a different subject matter. Just to give credit where credit is due. So like Barney Stinson said from How I Met Your Mother, new is always better, right? And I came to kind of a conclusion that I think a big part of it is kind of obvious. They were near the end of the analog era for cars. We had hit our max potential in performance in the analog world. Minimum ECU control with primitive ECUs and CPUs. Manual transmissions were still very common. A big one, physical gauges were still around, and a big variety of interior ideas. The interiors were not perfect by any means, but they did all have a different way of doing things. Pop quiz. If a YouTuber or somebody you watch online goes and buys a brand new car, or they go get an older car that's from this era, what's more exciting? What's more enticing for you to watch that video? So I'm gonna take a quick dive on all this stuff. I'm going to take it in separate segments, that way it's easy to digest, especially with an ADHD style brain, and ask the question, are modern vehicles memorable anymore? Or are they just appliances that you go to the dealership, you use for a while, and you trade it in like a phone or a computer that you just had your time with and you don't really remember much of it, but you used it for a while, right? So let's talk about this theory of why modern cars aren't as memorable as the old ones. Also, side note, I have an event this weekend called Tandem Trials. You take two grassroots drivers, you put them in an obstacle course, and they have to beat each other to the very end, going through all the course, drifting, road course racing, you name it, it's got it all. So make sure to head out to Tandem Trials on July 26 at Caffeine Octane Linear Raceway across from Road Atlanta. Driver tickets and spectator tickets are still available, so link down in the description below, and hope to see you guys there. So before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button or you are forced to drive a Geo Metro every single day for the rest of your days. Hope you have some fun. 1. The engines themselves. This is a huge part of the story here. The legendary engines that we know today, like the 2JZ, the RB26, the LS Pushrod V8, those were all designed a very long time ago, which also means they have generational knowledge. You can find plenty of LS experts, JZ experts, RB experts now, and they aren't as complicated by today's standard. Once you have a simple understanding of them, you pretty much got it. So to keep a car with these engines isn't so much of a reach if you have to fix it later or when you have to fix it later. Somebody somewhere will be able to fix it and help you out, even if it's online. And you don't have to get that motor fixed at a dealership where you're kind of just boxed in. Try doing that with a modern engine today with just hand tools and no computer. It's probably not gonna be a great time. But I wanna be absolutely clear, engines have gotten amazing today. We have hit incredible technology with the internal combustion engine. Coyote V8 from Ford, which came out in 2010. Oh my God, that was a long time ago. The B58 and the S58 out of the modern BMWs. And many more examples that aren't as interesting, but are very incredible when it comes to gas mileage and development. The older engines were just products of their time, and they used simpler techniques, which in turn made it more analog and more raw. And using these simpler techniques, coincidentally, made some beautiful sounds. We don't have a lot of modern accessible sports cars nowadays where you're like, that thing is the best thing I've ever heard. Like, almost never. I don't think many people today could hear a modern engine go by in the distance and go, I know exactly what that is. It's not like an STI 3 miles away with a loud exhaust with its boxer engine. You're like, Subaru. I don't know if people can do that nowadays. But you do have a lot of things in the way of making a modern engine sound really good. You know, big resonators, emission standards. I mean, the brand new WRX I just drove was so quiet, I just couldn't believe it. It was barely recognizable as a boxer engine. It's also a very weird contradiction to talk about the convenience of horsepower, because now when you get a performance car, it's usually good enough. The modern cars are so fast now that there's really no need to take that journey to build the motor and build the transmission and do all these things to make it better, right? They're already really fast. But there is a big reason why there's no demand for EV sports cars, really. Because the entire point of having a sporty car is to get that amazing feeling from the sights and the sounds, and you wanted an engine that made a sound that matched the character of the design language on the outside of the vehicle. There's so many articles about why there's no demand for EV supercars because it removes the entire point about having a supercar. You can't justify a house payment in your garage when it makes no sound. like that's the beauty of inspiring to own something like a Lamborghini V12 or a Ferrari V8 that screams through the mountain passes. Like, sure, the EV is gonna be incredibly fast and it's gonna rip your face off from acceleration, not creating the memories and the stories of that resonance and that feeling and that character that goes through your bones, right? Also, with the modern engines, the knowledge is just a little bit less accessible nowadays since there isn't that crazy 30-year history of that engine being around. Since the simplicity just isn't there. You're probably gonna need some tool from an OEM factory or something like that to access things sometimes to fix it. Next is probably the biggest point of this video. It's the interiors. This is obviously something I've noticed as a car reviewer of old cars and new cars. And it's probably the most common complaint in comment sections when I review a car. Almost every interior in the modern era has the same plan. You have a big giant screen or tablet kind of style screen. You remove as much as you can from the dashboard itself to try to give it this minimalist look, also known as the Tesla-ification of a car interior, and no physical gauges and usually no physical knobs for climate control either, which can be very annoying. Nothing is more frustrating than you driving a car and you're just trying to get the AC on and you have to go through like a menu, then you have to hit the right touchpad, or touchpad spot on the big screen to try to turn AC on. You're like, oh my God, just give me a knob. A car review almost becomes more of who has a better user interface, almost like a tech review, rather than who has the full-fledged experience anymore. Who does and doesn't have Apple CarPlay. Something in old cars I always looked forward to was the inspiration or the design language of the interior. The interior is an art piece of a car. When you get in, it's the biggest impression. Sure, when you look at a car, it's special, but when you get in a car, arguably it could be even more special. I'll never forget, I gave somebody a ride in the brand new Toyota Supra in 2020, and as soon as that BMW seatbelt and door chime came on, they literally were like, nope, that's it. I don't care. I don't care how good the car is. It's amazing how that little tiny impression could throw somebody's opinion right out the window. Side note, I still think the new Supra is really fun to drive in manual. Just saying. But if I closed my eyes and thought of the Terminator Cobra interior, the C5, C6 Corvette interior, the Skyline interior. I have those etched in my brain because I remember the simplicity of the gauges and the simplicity of everything inside, because it's all business. You are there for one reason. You are there to drive. You're not there to goof around on a screen. You're not there to do anything else. You're there to drive. It's an experience. And that has largely been missing. And I remember when you had digital gauges in a car, it was a cool thing. It was like, oh my gosh, you got the digital gauge? That's super neat, because it was fresh and new. But now I think a lot of people are craving that analog feeling again. It's kind of like people who collect watches. Like, why have the analog watch when your phone tells you the time? There's something special about something analog and crafted. You know it's pretty crazy when the world is kind of excited about a truck that purposely doesn't have features in it. I think the Slate truck is going to be incredibly fascinating when it comes to consumer reporting of like what they like and don't like about it. Even though it is EV, it still makes sense. Next is the actual engagement of driving a car. Under 20% of Americans know how to drive a manual transmission now. And I have to say, nearly every really impactful memory of me driving a sporty car or a muscle car or whatever you want to call it was when I was driving a manual transmission. The anticipation of clutching in, pulling that next gear, and hearing the motor come alive again and just throw you back, that's what made it exciting. There's just something about you being in complete control. But manuals are pretty hard to find now regardless. I will say though, the GR86 is probably my favorite manual new car today, but it's also incredibly simple. Sure, it has a digital gauge cluster, but it's that big. And at the same time, it has a basic infotainment screen just for my radio and stuff, and that's fine. I like driving that car because of how simple it is. Including, you can turn all the nannies off. The ABS, the stability control, the traction control, you can turn it all off. And that's very, very rare nowadays. I'm always really bummed when I can't do that in something I want to kind of goof off in right at the track or something. And another element of having a more analog car is that if you got stranded somewhere, you can fix it in a parking lot with the right knowledge and the right tools. The cars were just more fun to drive overall. Whether they were slower, it just didn't really matter because the experience was more engaging. That's also why I still review cars from the older era usually more often than the newer era, because they just have a better sense of speed too. The feeling you can get in a full throttle Miata with 100 horsepower is very hard to achieve with the sense of speed in something new and modern. You have to go so much faster to get that adrenaline rush feeling because the cars are so good. And the last thing I want to add to this video about cars being memorable is the accessibility. Cars are just not as accessible as they used to be, especially out of the box. The pricing is bonkers. A great example I've mentioned many times is the new Mustang. The new Mustang GT, the one that everybody wants, right? The V8 Coyote starts at $42,000 when it used to be, say, $32,000. That's a huge jump for somebody. What used to be the cheat code of horsepower is now out of reach for most people to justify. So why not go buy the S550, right? Well, that's a pretty new car, even though the first one came out 10 years ago. What's in our brain as new can just be very twisted sometimes. And when you make your car too expensive for the masses to enjoy, they are forgettable and you just don't see them as much. So even in the used market, people will see that car go by and go, oh yeah, totally forgot about that thing. Since it started at $80,000 before taxes, right? And let's not even get started on truck shopping. Oh my God. At the end of the day, I still do enjoy driving modern cars. I'm very fortunate because I get the opportunity to do that. But I would say if there's one takeaway from this entire discussion, it's the car interiors the most. Most people are kind of over this design language in the interior, but also the pricing and everything else we talked about. We cannot ignore the technological advances in cars. They are the fastest they've ever been. They're incredibly comfortable and impressive vehicles, but for enthusiasts, there is something missing, I think, for a lot of people, and they want that element back. But there are a few modern cars still holding the Ford down with this mentality. But as always, I like my videos feeling like a discussion of cars and car culture. What do you think about all this? Do you think this is all over dramatic? Or do you think there's any truth to any of these points? Let me know down in the comment section below. And on that note, I appreciate every single one of you for stopping by. See you next time. Have a great day.